Hi, I'm Kelly Trout, and I'm really jealous that I can't be there with you all. WAGR Weekend is such a completely unique event. I hope everyone attending in person is having a great time, and my hat is off to the Volk family and Karen Vaughn and all their friends and supporters who've made this event possible. They are people who know how to turn hope into action, and we all owe them so much. And that's the title of this talk. Is this a WAGR thing? Connecting the dots from hope to action. All of us have questions from the moment our child is diagnosed, from what is WAGR and how will it affect my child, to what are the tests, the procedures, the treatments, or medications that will help my child to be healthier, stronger, and to live a better, longer, healthier life. The goal of this presentation is not to answer all of those questions, but to draw for you the roadmap that makes all of those answers possible. So let's start at the beginning. The first dot in our journey can be placed in the early 1960s, when doctors realized there was a connection between aniridia and Wilms tumor. But it took more than a decade for scientists to connect other features like genital and urinary tract abnormalities, the G and the R, the range of developmental delays. And it wasn't until 1978 that the genetic deletion was finally identified. But every journey has to start somewhere. And the recognition that WAGR was a syndrome and the development of a genetic test for it allowed more patients to be identified. And then a really big thing happened in the 1990s. The internet. The internet was a miracle for families with rare disorders like WAGR. It let us find each other. Finding each other and talking to each other opened up a whole new world of questions. Does your child have other conditions besides W, A, G, and R? Oh my God, mine does too. Wait, our doctor doesn't know about any of these. Wait a minute. If doctors don't know about these things, then how can they diagnose them? How can they treat them? We parents knew that we had to do something. These discussions led directly to the first clinical article about WAGR syndrome. 54 parents from around the world shared copies of their children's medical records with a research team at Vanderbilt University. Ever since this article was published in 2005, we've been able to point to it as proof that the conditions listed, far beyond W, A, G, and R, are part of WAGR syndrome, and they've helped families to get medical care, health insurance coverage, educational services, and even sometimes validation with family members. See, I'm not crazy. This is not my fault. My child is not the only one. These conditions are part of WAGR. A critical lesson here is that the only reason this first article ever happened is because of parents. One parent found a researcher. Two parents helped write the article. 54 parents participated. 102 families fundraised to pay for it. And all of us have benefited ever since. But there were still so many questions. Why are kids with WAGR syndrome so similar to each other and yet so different? Studying medical records is great, but it's a look at the past. What could be learned from looking at actual patients and from talking to their parents? In 2006, another miracle occurred. We got a researcher at the National Institutes of Health, the NIH, interested in doing exactly that. More than 70 WAGR families actually traveled to Washington, D.C. for a week or more of genetic testing, imaging studies, and clinical evaluations. When you think about how challenging it can be sometimes just to take your kid to the grocery store, you can imagine the effort that these families made to participate in this study. But their efforts paid off, not only for their children, but for us and for all WAGR families forever. The NIH study discovered the BDNF gene. It discovered that this gene is responsible for obesity in WAGR syndrome. Again, it's not just my kid. It's not because I'm a bad parent. The same for behavioral disorders, mental health issues. They do not affect everyone with WAGR syndrome, but they are features of WAGR. Like Wilms tumor, they are part of the disorder. And again, like auditory processing disorder and chronic kidney disease, knowing about the possibility of these conditions means that if they occur in your child, then you and your child's doctors, your child's teachers, can recognize them. They can be diagnosed early and they can be treated. Now, I don't need to say a word about the WAGR Patient Registry, right? Everybody knows all about it, how it's the most important thing in the whole universe, and I am completely serious. And no, I am not kidding. If you have a child or an adult with WAGR syndrome, the most important thing in the world is for them to be registered in the WAGR Patient Registry. The second most important thing is if your child is enrolled, is for you to update your child's information. Has it been a year since you first enrolled? Has it been a year since you updated? Does your child have a new diagnosis since you enrolled or updated? Then go to the registry and update. Go ahead, do it now. I'll wait. Okay, you get the point. The thing about the registry is, there are two things. First, when a parent says, my child was just diagnosed with X, is that a WAGR thing? The data in the registry is where I look. Are there no other reports of this condition? Are there a couple? Or is it a recognized feature of WAGR and say 25% of people with WAGR have it? This can be really helpful information for a parent or a doctor to have. But here's where it gets interesting. What if multiple parents have reported this condition, but it's not a feature of WAGR syndrome? Is it a WAGR thing? And that's the second thing. Researchers look at the registry data too. The data shows that several conditions, for example, scoliosis, metabolic syndrome, and gastrointestinal disorders like chronic constipation and gastroparesis, where the stomach empties very slowly, are all associated with WAGR. This data is super helpful. It shows researchers that if they look at WAGR patients with these conditions, they are almost guaranteed to discover new and important things, new features of this disorder, new connections, perhaps even new genes. So, good news. As you probably know, the IWSA is currently working with researchers at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, also known as CHOP. The research team at CHOP has already established hugely important results from their analysis of the data in the WAGR Patient Registry. Things like new medical guidelines on the need to continue monitoring for Wilms tumor in all patients with WAGR syndrome throughout their lifespan, and when and how to screen for chronic kidney disease. The team has also developed a new and more sensitive genetic test for WAGR syndrome, and this test will help ensure that patients with unusual deletions don't miss being diagnosed, and that all patients with WAGR can have the most extensive and accurate testing possible. This is the team that will soon be focusing on those conditions that I just mentioned: scoliosis, metabolic syndrome, and gastrointestinal disorders. Their goal will be to document these as features of WAGR spectrum, to explore whether there are genes that can be linked to them in the WAGR deletion, and whether there are treatments that may be more helpful for patients with WAGR. But as great, as fantastic, as wonderful as all of that is, we still have a lot of work to do. One of the areas that causes many of our children and families the greatest challenge is not cancer. It's not vision or even all of these other medical conditions. It's behavior disorders, autistic behavior, sensory processing disorder. It's mental health conditions like anxiety disorder. Are these WAGR things? There's no doubt. And these are challenges that have an enormous impact on daily quality of life for the child and for every member of the family. But research on behavior problems is a challenge in itself. It's a good thing WAGR parents are tough. In order to get researchers interested in studying this part of WAGR and figuring out what causes these problems and how to treat them, we're going to have to work together. It's a good thing WAGR parents know just how to do that. Fundraising for and volunteering for the IWSA, enrolling in the registry, participating in research when your child is eligible for a study, and supporting other WAGR parents by sharing your own experience and encouragement. I know a lot of you do all of these things. And that's why we've come as far as we have until now. To go even farther, we all have to connect the dots. From asking questions and being desperate for answers, to taking the steps needed to get to those answers. The answers unlock the door to better, longer, healthier lives for our kids. The bottom line, hope takes action. If we want to help our children live their best possible lives, we parents have to drive the train. It takes one parent, it takes two, it takes all of us. Everyone has a part to play, and every part makes a difference. Thank you for your attention. And most of all, thank you for whatever parts you are playing in making a difference for all of our kids. Now, enroll in the patient registry, please. Thank you.